I know we've only known each other for 4 weeks and 3 days, but to me, it seems like 9 weeks and 5 days.
All right, all of my garden enthusiasts and passionate plant people. Welcome to the Sunday edition of Let's Get Growing right here on the Urban Gardener channel. I'm Enoch. I'm your host today. We've got a great show for you today. We've got our good friend Marc Boucher-Colbert joining with us here in just a few minutes for our In the Garden, and it's also the third Sunday of the month, so it is our monthly gardening book club. And this month we are talking all about all of our previous books. Our book club selection for this month didn't work out. So we don't have our great author here today, but we do have Marc with us, joining with us here in just a little bit. We'll just talk all about all of these just awesome books. I mean, we've already got to talk to and have 7 really amazing gardening book clubs so far this year. And I'm really looking forward to talking about all these different books and just look forward to what we've got growing on for our book club coming up in this next year. We do have also one more month to go. So we will talk about our book club selection for December here just a little bit later in the show too as well. We've got some more great books going into this next year, like I said. So you want to keep tuned in with us here. We're having so much fun with this gardening book club. Right on, right on. But if you are all joining with us here today, remember to hit that like button, hit the thumbs up there real quick. And also, if you haven't yet already, click the subscribe button and that bell notification so you can be notified of all of our upcoming videos and live streams right here on the Urban Gardener channel. And be sure to share with all of your friends and let them know about all of the great things that we've got growing on here on Let's Get Growing every Saturday and Sunday at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 2 p.m. Eastern, with all of our great guests and great gardening conversation that we have here. You'll definitely want to let all of your friends know, and so they can come and join the conversation with all of us here. Also, again, too, big, huge shout out to all of you who are watching us on the replay. I know a lot of you can't join with us live, but we do get a lot of replay viewers and everything. So I really appreciate all of you who take your time to check in on our show and catch up when you can. And if you are watching on the replay, definitely get down into the comment section below. Let me know you're here. Let me know what you got growing on. If you got any questions or comments, or if you just want to stop by and say hi, I'd love to hear from all of you. So definitely do that. And also, if you are here joining with us live and you do have any questions or comments or anything like that, definitely get into the chat there. And if you have any questions, definitely put those in all caps for us. Put them in capitals so that I can see the difference between questions and the regular conversation going on. And we can make sure that we try to get those questions featured here on the show, especially when we get Marc on too, and talk about all these books and everything too. So if you have any questions, definitely put those into the chat there, and descriptions down below for all of neat things that we've got available here on the Urban Gardener channel. So definitely go check out our description or links in the descriptions. And yeah, again, thank you all so much for joining with us here today. It's really, really great to have you all here. We've had some really great shows here recently, and if you didn't get to check out yesterday's show, yesterday was really great. I'm a big fan of Baker Creek Heirloom Seed Company, and follow all of their social media. So over the last year or two, Ryan Schumacher, who was on our show yesterday, is does all of their kind of fun little videos and all of that too. So he's kind of well known in the Baker's Creek community for all of the great fun content that he puts out for Baker Creek Heirloom Seed Company. And I got to see him down at the National Heirloom Exposition back in September, and thought that it would be great to get him on the show and talk all about how he got involved with Baker Creek and everything, and how he got started with doing all of their fun videos and reels and all these shorts and stuff that he does for Baker Creek. They're really kind of fun and funny, and they bring some good humor to it all and everything. So it was a really great conversation, a little bit more too involved than what I thought. I mean, he actually has been with Baker Creek since Baker Creek pretty much got started in its very early years, and he's done a bunch of great market gardening and seed farming for Baker Creek, as well as doing that market gardening in other places around the world, like the Sudan. We talked about that as well too. So really great conversation with Ryan. Also on yesterday's show, we got to meet Brook Morgan from At What Brook Grows, and really fun conversation with Brook. We're definitely going to have her back on again for maybe one of our Sunday edition roundtables or something in the future. We had a great conversation. Brook and I are pretty much really similar in our garden personalities and all of that as well too. So that was a fun conversation to have with Brook. So you want to go back and check out yesterday's show. Also last week on the show too, on last Saturday's show, we got to talk to Marcus Bridgewater from Garden Marcus. Now, I call Marcus a garden inspirationalist. He's very inspiring. He's also put out a couple of books and does all these great videos and reels and different things, all in the sense of inspiring people to find their connection to nature and plants and all that sort of stuff. So it was really great to talk to Marcus last week. And on the Sunday edition roundtable, we had with us Josh Gardens from the Plant Techie and Desiree from Gardening with Des on our Sunday roundtable. Again, another really fun conversation. I love these gardening roundtables that we get to do. I've got a couple more planned. Hopefully we'll have one next week and the week after as well too, as we're leading into December and the holiday season and all that coming up as well too. I can't believe it. I mean, winter's just right around the corner. Wow, it's just hard to believe how fast this year has gone by. And today's kind of a reflection of that as well too, as we're talking about all these different books that we've been reviewing and talking about here on our Sunday gardening book club, our monthly gardening book club, in fact, on the third Sunday of each month. And it's been a really fun adventure for us here on the Let's Get Growing show this year. We've got to talk to so many great, amazing guests. And, again, too, just kind of winding down the year, and we still got some great stuff going. And as I kind of mentioned too, this last week as well too, and I'm going to start letting everybody know this from week to week, is that we are going to take kind of a short holiday break. It's not going to be like our break we took last year. When the holidays came around, we stopped the first year, basically the first season of the Let's Get Growing show, and then we took like a couple of months off so I could get some other things prepared and set up and everything. But we're not going to do that this year. We're only taking just a couple of weeks. We're going to take the Christmas and right after New Year's, we're going to get right back at it with lots more great fun gardening conversations right here on Let's Get Growing. We'll get right back into it with our monthly gardening book club. In fact, we'll have, as I mentioned yesterday too, Gardener Scott will be back joining with us on our second Sunday of the month for all your garden questions answered with Gardener Scott. So we'll get back to that in December and January. Again, lots and lots of things going on here on the Let's Get Growing show. I did want to make one more mention to Sunday roundtable that we did a couple of weeks back, because this was really fun. It's really great that this year I finally got one of my favorite gardener YouTubers on the show. He's got one of the biggest gardening YouTube channels in the world at around 2.5 million subscribers. He was on the top of my get list as far as guests and everything since I got this whole idea started. And we were really blessed to have Marc Valencia from Self-Sufficient Me on the show earlier, and a couple of weeks ago he came back on the show again for one of our Sunday edition roundtables. And so we had Marc Valencia from Self-Sufficient Me, and then we brought back another good friend of ours, Nate Murray from Garden Like a Viking. He's been on the show a couple of times, and I thought it would be great to get these two together and have a great conversation. And it really, really was an awesome conversation. I wish I had a bit more time that Sunday too, to be able to keep the conversation going with them. But we'll get them back again too. What we kind of talked about that day, as well as a bunch of other things, it was kind of the idea of Marc's in Australia, Nate's out in the Midwest, and we're here in the States. Marc's in Australia, and our seasons are really flipped. And that was really kind of fun, and tried to create the timing and get the timing just right so that we could have them on the show and everything. But the seasons are flipped. We are going into our fall, we're through our fall, going into winter season here, and they are in their spring, going into their summer season there. So I thought what we should do is we'll get them back again when that flips back around. So we'll get, as we're going into our spring season and spring to summer season, and then Marc's going into his fall and winter season. I think we'll try to get them back again for another roundtable and have another really fun discussion with them about the changing of seasons again and a bunch of other things. And I'll try to make sure I've got plenty more time so that we can stick around and have a nice, good conversation with both of them. But you want to go back and check out that conversation as well too. So, all right, let's see who we all got joining with us here today on the show. Now, of course, we've got to say hi and thank you as well to our moderator, Jay Dixon, joining with us from Huron County, Midwestern Ontario, Canada. Jay's always popping in some great links and all of that throughout the show. And I'm sure, again, there'll be plenty of them today as we're going through our books and everything. So maybe you guys can she can help us help you guys find some of these great books we're going to be talking about and all of that. So make sure you're keeping an eye in the chat there for all of the great links and everything that Jay puts in there. Thank you so much for joining with us, Jay. Let's see, we've got Bettina joining with us here. Good afternoon from cool and overcast Eastern Ontario. Awesome. Excellent. Great to have you here. A couple of Ontario viewers. So awesome to have you here with us. We got Adam as well in the conversation there, our other moderator. Adam joining me and all of us from just right down the road. He's my neighbor here up in Central Point, Oregon. Great to have you here with us, Adam. Pacific Permaculture. Awesome. Hello. Good to see you here on the show. Thank you all so much for joining with us here today. Let's see here. Oh, Adam says autumn is definitely here, wet and cool in Southern Oregon. That is for sure. We're finally starting to get a lot of that rain we've been missing for a while, and it's been really, really pouring down, and the evenings are getting really, really cool. I still haven't had a complete freeze or hard frost yet. We're still looking to see that. I've still got most of my plants are bearing through most of this cool weather that we have so far. And again, I've been actually out there yesterday pulling off tomatoes and peppers and just getting the plants ready, because I'm sure any night now it's going to just do those plants in. So frost is imminent at some point. It's been really late this season, but definitely imminent at some point. Oh yeah, and Jay popped in the chat there too. Again, another reminder, we will have Gardner Scott back. I know people have been asking about that. We've missed him the last couple of second Sundays on our show, as our schedules didn't really line up. But yeah, December 15th, and that's again 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, and we will have Gardner Scott back on the show. He's really excited about getting back on too. I've been emailing and talking with him, so we'll look forward to that for sure. So, all right, it is Sunday. It's the third Sunday of the month, and usually on Sundays we're getting to hang out with our my good friend from up in Portland, Oregon, Marc Boucher-Colbert, MBC, and each Sunday he's usually here doing a in the garden segment from us from some place, whether it's out at the school gardens or the rooftop garden, or even this last week we got to see him down in his grow room at his house and everything for our segment called In the Garden. All right. So let's welcome to the show for the In the Garden segment. We got with Marc Boucher-Colbert from Urban Ag Solutions.
As usual, always excited by the third Sunday, man. It's a good Sunday. A lot of good stuff going down.
Absolutely, absolutely. I look forward to it too. We get to hang out together live and get to have some fun conversations. Usually we got an author with us for a fun gardening conversation about the books and everything, but like I said to you before we got started with the show, it was bound to happen at one point in time when you're doing a live show like this, that something along the way isn't just going to work out quite the way you want to. And that's, that's been the case for me in other shows and all that sort of stuff. Again, a part of doing a live show, but we do get the opportunity though to still hang out and have a
Oh
fun
yeah,
conversation anyways.
and I think it was part of the plan that we were going to take a session to review, because
Yeah.
I mean, it's similar to the rhythm and gardening, right? I mean, you at
Yep.
the end of the season, you want to kind of go back over your notes. You want to think through what was great, what was not so great, what you want to do differently. And I mean, in terms of the books, I think it's a great time to just look at all the books we've read so far, the authors we've talked to, and just pick out little stories, what was fun. Of course, all these things are available in replay. And so somebody today might be able to hear something that excites them, and they can just go back and listen to that interview if they didn't get to hear it when it was
Yeah.
going down.
Yeah, you definitely don't want. I mean, if you have missed any of our conversations that we've had, again, as we move on to our monthly book club segment here a little bit later in the show, we'll talk a lot about these different books and authors we've gotten to talk about. And they're just, I mean, amazing, amazing so far. But we are here to talk about what you've got going on in the garden.
Yeah, what's going well, like you, we have not had a really hard frost yet either. We've had a little bit of light frost in some parts of
Hmm.
the city. Hasn't The curtain hasn't really fully come down yet. But I've noticed that a lot of things are just deteriorating. The quality's not looking so good. There may be a few
Hmm.
tomatoes going on, but they're blotchy and splotchy and not looking good. So I've been just pulling stuff down.
Yep.
Still planting garlic, of course. There's still, as I clear out beds, I plant garlic or cover crop. Um, with cover crop, I'm a couple of things struck me this week. One is I got a lot of clover seed, and
Okay.
people are probably familiar with inoculant. It's a black powder that's got a lot of bacterial spores in it that will form an association with the roots of legumes. The peas, the beans, the vetches, all the clovers.
Hmm.
uh, and it helps gather these bacteria are able to gather nitrogen from the air and bring it into the soil. So it's really important to inoculate. But one thing I realized, and I felt a little amateurish, I clover has a different inoculant than the others. The other peas, beans, and vetch, there's usually sold together as like a garden inoculant packet, which you can get at almost any store. But if you get clover, you need a different inoculant. So I thought I had an envelope of it, and when I went and tried to inoculate, all I had was the teeniest little bit left over. So I was like, "Oh man, amateur! I did not have my pantry stocked, so to speak. It's like having a guest over, and you're going to make tuna fish salad or something, and you look and you just like don't have any chopped black onions. It's like what?" So
Exactly, right?
yeah, so mental note, this year, I gotta make sure I have that clover. I mean, I gotta order some right now, but then just, it pays to think ahead and to just have the stuff lined up. So I do have a lot of crimson clover that I'm gonna be sowing, but I gotta get some of that inoculant and get it on there because, it's specific, the inoculant for clover is specific to clovers. Uh, yeah, so a lot of cover crop. I'm planting rye, cereal rye that germinates really well in the cold.
Mhm.
I've got some dwarf gray sugar peas that I do a lot for microgreens, and those make great cover crop as well. And of course, with those guys, you can eat half of it and be growing yourself some salad greens during the winter,
Yeah,
which is great. I make salads
dual purpose.
shoots, man. I mean, it's like that is good stuff. You don't need lettuce.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah, and just looking back too on last week's In the Garden segment too, got me inspired. I'm getting my grow um situation indoors all set up, getting ready to get all my microgreens growing for the season and all of that. I think again I'm a little late on it because again the seasons are just a little late, so I'm kind of a little behind because I'm still doing things out in the garden. Things are still growing. Things are still kind of going out there because of what we mentioned about, having a, later season and it hasn't quite froze yet. So I'm out there, like you said, some of the quality's kind of going down a little bit. So I'm making sure because it's, like I said, it's imminent. It's going to happen. So I've been pulling off all of our biggest tomatoes and everything, and we're setting them out, getting them to counter ripe and all of that. And, and just kind of getting things going. So now that it's a little bit later out there, I haven't been as focused on the things I got to get going and get started for the indoor growing that we do throughout the wintertime.
Well, one of the, I think I mentioned this last week that some years ago, a lot of people probably have some grow lights somewhere in their house and maybe grow some of their own starts. It's certainly, it's a great way to provide your own starts very cheaply. And then you can also grow what you want in case it's not available at the nurseries. But, here I was looking at these lights and I probably grew my last lettuces up through late August or September. And then I'd shut the thing off and it would just sit all winter. And then I started looking at it. It was like, wait, if I can grow little lettuces like that to that stage for transplant, it's like, why not just cut them and eat them then, as baby lettuce? So that was how the whole indoor growing thing was born. And this year I'm really excited because I am having great results with full heads of lettuce. This has been challenging, I have to admit, indoors because they tend to get tip burn. They tend to get a lot of browning on the edges of leaves, especially the new leaves, which, as I understand, is from calcium mobility. But this year I got a new potting soil I'm trying. It's made out of recycled paper and cardboard products. And I'll probably have a lot more to say about that over the winter as I get deeper into the trials.
Yeah, what's that called again?
Pit moss. So not peat moss, but pit moss.
Pit moss, yeah.
I like it. At first I thought it was going to be too moisture retentive because it feels very moist to the touch. Like, you can imagine like if you soaked a bunch of newspaper, this is all threaded, of course. It retains a lot of water, and there is a little warning on the bag that says don't overwater. But I'm not having a problem with that. It's performing really well. And
Excellent.
Even other microgreens and other starts that I'm growing in there with that as the medium they jump out of that thing. So it's like, this looks great. And then I'm fertilizing with a down to earth transplant fertilizer, 542 NPK numbers, 542. And I'm using this stuff called azomite, which is a mineral like
a rock dust.
Yeah, it's like a rock dust that has like 60 minerals, trace minerals and such. So stuff that's kind of what we'd probably refer to as the micronutrients, right? The small stuff that's needed in very small quantities. Anyway, so far so good. I just had a delicious salad last night with some of that lettuce, and I was like, this is high quality. It tastes great. So
yeah, and that's a good reason too. Again, I'd like to remind everybody is down below in the description, there's a link to Marc's Instagram. You got to follow him over on Urban Ag Solutions on Instagram, where you can see, Marc will put up some different videos and different things along the way as he's experimenting with different things. And again, I was watching the one you did, as well as, we had the In the Garden segment, but you also did another little video kind of showing just a little bit more. And you had that one big head of lettuce too. I was like, man, that is just really great. And again, it just goes to show we can continue to grow and get some good stuff growing right in our indoor gardens as well.
Yeah, and then this week I'm going to be planting up a lot of basil. I love, who doesn't love fresh basil right during the summer, but it's super easy to grow during the winter too in your grow space. And the other thing about the grow space to me is it is just pure light therapy, because I have those bright, nice white full LEDs, but you can do it with fluorescents too. They have
it gets really dark during the winter time.
Man, I cut a little 20 minutes down there every day. I feel good. I feel real good. It's like a nice bright light, and it's kind of, and being around the plants too. I mean, this may come up with when we talk about Leave Your Troubles Behind by Karen
Yeah,
Huckler. But just plants are good energy, man. They're good therapy. We need that kind of stuff now. And it's good just
exactly.
have a little place in your house where you can kind of just go and bask in the greenery.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Nice and bright and all the green and everything can really help bring the mood up for sure, especially during some gloomy, rainy or cold and freezing, snowy weather that we all might be having or experiencing during the winter time. So again, indoor grow rooms are great to help
And
out with that during the winter time.
Enoch, talking about bringing the mood up, I got
Oh
the
yeah.
first seed catalog
Oh,
in
I
my
should have grabbed mine too. I just got my first one the other day. Which one was yours there?
pine tree.
Pine tree. Oh, I should have grabbed mine. High mowing showed up for me.
Oh, I don't. Okay, I don't get high mowing. That's awesome.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it is these guys. You got to hand it to them. The first in your hand, man. This I'm scrutinizing this because it's the only one that I have right now.
Right now, yeah.
So
Just
my full attention is on this one. I'm
I
definitely.
know.
They are.
That-
This is a good seed company. I really like these guys. It's a small thing out in Maine.
Yeah. I'm surprised
Uh,
mine has, and hopefully I'm still on the mailing list, I guess, too. I might have to check that out on some of my other favorite ones too, as well. But yeah, it's always great to get that first catalog in the mail. It gets really exciting. I don't care about how much things are moving online and all of that. I think those seed companies should really stick with that, in your hands. Again, we're here talking about the book club here today.
oh
You know
yeah,
what I mean? It's great to have books, magazines, seed catalogs right in your hands so you can flip through those pages and everything and see them right there, more than trying to go through online. And it seems really informal if you're just going through someone's seed catalog online and all of that. And again, too, I'm looking forward to more of them. We had Ryan Schumacher on yesterday from Baker Creek Heirloom Seed
yeah. Oh my,
Company, and I'm still waiting for their free catalog
yeah.
and the whole seed catalog, which is like the Sears catalog of great, fun varieties of heirloom crops and things that we can grow. Baker Creek does such a great job with that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I always buy 2 copies of that big catalog. I buy the whole what
The
is it?
whole seed catalog.
Yeah. I buy
Yeah.
one for myself because I can't resist. And then I buy one for the Noble Rot where I'm the rooftop gardener and I just give it to the chefs as a Christmas present. They know what's coming, but it's
Ah,
so fun to look through and it's so informative. And
yeah, yeah.
I,
Well,
I grow a lot of seeds from Baker Creek. I love their selection. I was
yeah,
just
yeah,
popping. I did a popcorn lesson with my kids at school this week, and I
yeah.
4 varieties of popcorn that we grew from Baker Creek.
Oh,
Uh,
excellent.
we had actually one was from Botanical Interest, a kind of a standard yellow long ear called Robust, and then I had a really tiny petite one called Strawberry that's fat and thick. That's really fun. Another
Yeah.
one called Tiny Pink that's long and slender with the real tiny kernels, and then Dakota Black, which is an interesting one with real pointy kernels.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
Candy Black.
I've
So
seen that strawberry one before, that and those look really cool.
I haven't actually. It looks great for decoration. I haven't actually popped it yet. We popped Tiny Pink this week. It was a huge success. It was so tasty. The kids loved it. They got to take the kernels off the cob. It was really fun.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. In fact, that's kind of funny we talk about popcorn though too in relation to Baker Creek, because that was what Ryan was in the middle of doing there. He's got himself a nice little campsite outside of the
Oh,
Baker Creek farm there that he camps out at, and he had a little fire there, and they were testing different popcorns
oh, no kidding.
and all of that. So that's what he was in the middle of doing when when we were doing the interview yesterday. So that was really kind of fun. And they got
Wow.
so many really fun, great varieties and everything. One thing I will say here, and I'll give a tip for everybody, and I'll think about this for you and your chefs and all of that as well too, is that if you go to the Heirloom Exposition down in Southern California, they've got stacks and stacks of leftover whole seed catalogs that they just give away. And so
Mm.
I always grab a couple of them. So I'll have to remember this next time to grab a few more for you to hand out to your chefs and everything there at the Noble Rod as well
Oh
too.
man, yeah.
It's a good way to
They
save a few bucks and
generous.
get the previous year's catalog.
I do ask them. They send me 2 crates of 2 boxes of their free catalog, and I run through that with the kids. We do a
Yeah.
lesson in, you know, around January when the weather's bad and maybe not
Mm-hmm.
go outside, or it might be too cold or raining too hard. I
Yeah.
always do an indoor lesson or two with those Baker Creek catalogs. The kids love them. And, you know, I think I'm making some converts. I think the kids go home
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
parents, and then, you know,
With the
there's
good visuals helps
uh,
inspire, you know, and especially with kids and everything too. Have you gotten any seeds from them? Because that's one of the great things about Baker Creek is as an educator, if you send them, and this is for anybody else who knows any school programs or anything, garden programs near you or anything as well too, contact Baker Creek Heirloom Seed Company at rareseeds.com, and they will send you out seed and free seed for educational purposes.
yeah, I haven't actually. I just wind up buying it from them, but I haven't actually requested it free. So I guess I should hit them up for that first.
Yeah, yeah, they'll send you out something. In fact, several years ago, as I was working with my community garden, if you have community gardens and you know just anything has to do with gardening and gardening education, they are so generous with things. They sent me out a whole big old packet of just all sorts of seeds, you know, and these are their previous year's seeds. So you know they're just restocking and resetting, so they give away. Uh, uh, all of those previous year's seeds, and we got a whole bunch of them. And I just took them down to the community garden, was just handing them out to everybody and letting them go through them so they could have seeds to grow in their gardens. But it's one of the things I love about that company, though, is that they're so generous. They're so involved with different charities and different things, garden education, you know, which is what that whole heirloom exposition's about. They don't take any profit from that show. All of that money goes right into school education programs and all of that as well too. So they're just a great company all around.
Someday I'm going to meet you down there for that show. We keep talking about that. We haven't,
Mm-hmm.
but that's
Yeah.
gonna,
Well, and it's also too, and I was thinking as the year is winding down here, we're getting that much closer to restarting a whole new season, a whole new year, and that gets kicked off with the Flower and Garden Show up in Seattle too. So I'm really looking forward to that. Our good friend of the show and friend of our channel here, Wendy Fan, will be speaking up there too. So looking forward to getting up there and meeting with her and a couple of the other authors that we've actually talked with here on the show and everything as well too. Ellen Zakos will be up there.
yeah,
Christy, I think Christy Wilhelmi might be back. I'm not sure. I'll have to double check on that. And a couple of other authors we're looking to have on the show again for this next year too. So this could be fun. We're gonna have a real great time this time.
I might have to go all 5 days this year. I've never gone all 5 days. I keep wanting to. You know, I got friends that stay in Seattle, and it's so much fun. I mean, I get so excited that show, and it just propels me through the whole garden year. I can't wait. It's, you know, it's the second biggest garden show in the country. So
yeah.
Sooner or later,
There's so much there, so much to see, so much to experience. And again, a lot of other things around Seattle. Last time we didn't get a chance to go to the Spheres. So I'll have to work on maybe getting you over there and check that out. Wendy speaks on the first day. So I was thinking about that also the other day. It's like, now I'm going to have to actually do like right into the weekend because, you know, if I'm going to go up there and meet up and stuff. So we'll have to make some plans and do some fun things while we're up there. It'd be great.
Yeah. So we'll definitely you'll be hearing more from us there live. We'll be doing some live stuff there. And that's really one of our first episodes live was from that show, right?
Oh yeah. I still remember that. Again, me still learning how to work some of this tech and camera stuff. It was probably one of the worst audio interviews that you'll ever hear in your life, but it was so fun. And again, too, one of the great things about meeting you and our friendship over the years and everything too is it goes back to those early days and that me just trying to figure this stuff out, you know, and you were having just as much fun right along with me. So it was really great.
We had a great time doing the show. So I'm looking forward to that again.
Yeah. Excellent. You got anything else growing on there in your different gardens? What's going on out at the school?
Well, like I said, we just getting in all the popcorn. I mean, you know, we harvested the popcorn about a month ago, and then we have an old-fashioned boiler room, which is about 95 degrees at all times. So we just threw it in there for a month to let it dry out. You know, I just 2 weeks ago, I used to run a community-supported farm in Portland way back in the 90s called Urban Bounty. And the woman I started with she's been a seed farmer out in Idaho, Beth Razgashek. And she came through town a couple of weeks ago and she donated a beautiful grinding mill for both corn and wheat. And at school, we've been growing a lot of corn in the past, and we actually had a big surplus of Oaxacan green dent, which makes an incredible cornmeal. So we got a big tub of Oaxacan green dent that we're going to be grinding up with this new mill. And then, the capability of wheat, it just made me start thinking maybe we should be growing some gourmet wheats. So, if anybody actually if any of the listeners know anything about that, I'd be willing to take some advice on interesting varieties beyond the, hard red winter wheat that I can get that through Bob's Red Mill. But
Yeah.
maybe some interesting gourmet varieties of wheat that would be intriguing to people who are bakers. We sell mostly to our parents. We do a farmer's market every week and sell to our parents. But
Yeah.
wheat would be really cool to incorporate in too. So we might be starting to get into wheat farming too at school.
Do some wheat farming. Yeah, you got lots of space there too. That was one of the things I was really surprised about when I went out to visit you there. That you got all that space, and I think you were showing in the gardens not too long ago, showing us around some of that space and how you're trying to take just a little bit more of it each year, just to
Yeah.
gain a little bit more of it each time. So yeah, you never know. Eventually, it might just be fields of wheat, right? Fields of pumpkins and fields of different things.
So I do have to talk about our Brussels sprouts. It won't ever just be fields a week because we do love our Brussels sprouts too. Like
Yes, you like.
and I must say the Brussels sprouts are looking really good this year. So I think it's going to be a very exciting year for Brussels sprouts too in terms of the winter gardening.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah.
Right on. Yeah, so lots of things growing on in the garden there,
Yeah.
and yeah, all of that. And again, too, we're gonna have ourselves a fun conversation here in just a few minutes. We're gonna talk all about all of our different books that we've gone over. I got all of mine right here,
Yeah.
and we'll also talk a little bit about and announce our next year's book. He's got them all. Excellent. So right on. Let's move right along here today, and we'll be back here in just a minute or two, and we'll get started with our monthly gardening book club.
Okay, catch you in a minute.
Hey gardeners, thanks for tuning in to our show today. We'll be right back at it here in just a moment. I just wanted to take a second here to highlight our regular videos and features here on the Urban Gardener channel. Our weekly garden journals, and our incredible featured visits. All right. So what is your favorite gardening book out there? I would love to hear about what all some of your favorite books are too. So if you're here within the chat, jump into the chat there real quick. Let me know one of your favorite gardening books. And if you are watching here on the replay as well too, get down in the comments below. Let me know about some of your favorite gardening books, and maybe we'll look into getting one of those authors on for our next year's gardening book club selections and all of that as well too. We'd love to be able to feature some of your favorite authors here. We've had a great year featuring a bunch of my favorite authors, some of Marc's favorite authors. We've got plenty more coming, as I talked about earlier, going into the new year. But maybe we can get an author that you really enjoy, a book that you've really enjoyed about gardening. So definitely jump into the chat there or into the comments below and let me know about your favorite gardening authors and books out there too. So again, great to have you all here with us. Thank you so much for being here. It's such a great day here for a great conversation about all of our favorite gardening books. So let's get started with our monthly gardening book club. All right. So let's bring Mark right back in here.
Back to the good stuff.
Back to the good stuff. That's right.
The gardening talk wasn't the good stuff, but somehow this book group is really engaging. It's really exciting.
Yeah. And we've had, again, too, some just amazing authors. And one of the things that, we've talked about over and over again is that, you got your usual book club. If you're involved with a local book club, you'll get together with some folks. You guys select different books, and then you'll read the books, and you'll get together in each other's living rooms and maybe have some snacks or something like that. And then you'll
wine.
talk.
I think wine drives a lot of book clubs.
Yeah. So wine, exactly. Right. And you'll all get together and you'll talk about what you think about of these different books and everything. But the one thing that makes our book club just so unique and so much fun is that we get these authors to come join us for this book club and to talk about what went into these books and what they were thinking as they were putting these books together and all of that. So we have had some really, really amazing special conversations over what is now 7 months, 7 different books, 7 amazing authors. And again, too, that's what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about each of these different books. And we'll kind of start from the beginning, though. So first off, before we dig into some of these books, let's just hear from you a little bit about your experience so far after, again, 7 months, 7 great authors, 7 great books that we've had so far. Tell me a little bit about how you're feeling about all of this.
Well, you probably remember the thing that last month I was on our talk with Ashley Thomas.
Yeah.
I was a puddle at the end, man. I couldn't believe it. I actually started crying at the end. I was just.
She's so great.
I was so moved by it, and I think so. I'm going to say that as the thing that distinguishes this experience, because I've read a lot of books. I got a huge stack of books here, the ones that I hope we'll eventually get to. It's so wonderful to just be able to read and be able to expand our horizons and come up with new ideas. But this experience, but there's a certain level of two-dimensionality to it. It's like you read the book, you kind of interact with the information, but getting to talk with the authors is a whole other level, because not only do you have them interpreting again what they wrote, but they bring it right into the moment. They tell you what they were just doing 5 minutes before. So you get this sense of how human their life is. And then like somebody like Ashley or, all of them in some way or other, we get to touch their passions. Like, what is their passion? Why are they doing this? Why is it so important? This isn't just something they're churning out. Somehow it's touched them. Somehow they've dedicated some pretty big portion of their life, maybe a whole year, maybe longer, to writing this book. And it's just, that is moving to me. That is really astonishing and moving. And I feel like with some of these people, it's like just a total level of kinship with them that I would have never felt just from reading the book. I would have enjoyed the book, but wouldn't have felt sort of related to them in some way. And after meeting them online here, it's just been great.
Yeah. And getting more information from the source itself, out of these different books that we've been featuring so far this year is really great. And for me, though, too, in that sense, is I've been fortunate enough to be able to interview so many different people within the gardening community. And with that, there's a lot of authors and everything as well, too. But in a lot of the interviews, when I get authors on, especially like last week, I had Marcus on, and he's written a couple of books and all of that. But we're kind of talking about in general all this different stuff and things that he does and everything, and just really getting to know him in a sense. The difference here, though, with this book club is that we're really just focusing in on one of these books and focusing in on what, how that came about for them, and really just really being able to dig into individual books, which is really great versus just a regular general conversation about everything kind of thing that we get with most of our authors and our other shows.
Yeah, and I have to say, I don't know how many folks have been able to read along with us, or even just listen in to all of them, but it has been a really wide range of different approaches. We had everything from like Marta McDowell with a very historical
Yeah.
book, to something like a Cisco that is like garden humor. It's got plenty of just witty little stories that are full of his own humor and his own incredible experiences in horticulture. We've had a garden novel, so a fictional piece of work. Some really how-to books like Ellen Zakos, like a field guide almost.
Yeah.
There's been Tony O'Neill's kind of a real sciencey based book. So there's just been, I think we have not gotten into any kind of a rut. I mean, it has been bouncing around in very interesting way. And we've taken in a lot of real interesting information, but also styles of giving that information.
Yeah, and that was I think one of the big focuses I had when I thought about this gardening book club, though, too, was the just kind of the various different types of books and different approaches to telling different things. Whether like you're mentioning, Christy Wilhelmy's book we'll talk about here, just a novel telling a story of a fictional story in order to kind of relate a lot of this fun. I mean, there's gardening tips and there's all that sort of stuff there too. That's a great way to kind of bring about some gardening knowledge through telling a story. And again, like you're saying, Cisco and his humor and his funny personal stories and things. And so that was kind of the focus, was like, how can we really kind of give people a sense of the different varieties of books in the ways of being able to relay great gardening information to people.
Yeah, and I got to hand it to you, Enoch. If anybody's watching or listening or watching the replay, that they don't know who you are. In my mind, you are one of the great bridge builders in the garden world, and your fearlessness in reaching out to anybody and everybody to ask them to be on the show has been just amazing. Because all I do is just sit back and you do most of the work. I just have to read the book and be ready to discuss it. But you do all the background work. You get the authors to say, you have to reach out to them, and sometimes it's a total cold call. I mean, you don't know these people necessarily. Some of them you've interviewed before, but you're doing a great job of just getting all these big names to say yes to us, and it's been real fun.
Yeah, it can be a challenge sometimes. Again, too, this month kind of being a case in point for that is, we've been promoting a book and author this last month that ultimately didn't work out. And like I said, we're doing a live show here. We're reaching out to tons of different people all the time to have them on for interviews. And eventually, just like I've had experience with the regular live show and everything, I knew it was bound to happen eventually for our book club, is that, there's going to be some sort of issue, whether it's scheduling or getting someone on when we were looking to do that. And again, this month kind of is what we ran into for that. But, again, it gives us a good opportunity to do something we were talking about, though, is, kind of doing a year in review or a way to look back at some of these great books and everything that we've gotten to read this year. So again, really great. And I appreciate the compliments and everything too. So let's dig in it. So again, if everybody hasn't followed along with us, you'll definitely want to mark on your calendar every third Sunday of the month and come and join with us. And again, too, you don't have to get these books, but I'm telling you, you want to get them. You really do. You want to get a hold of one of these different books. You want to read through them. You want to check them out. And again, too, getting to talk with these authors was really great. And our very first adventure into our book club was one that you suggested right off the bat, and I thought was a great idea. Is we had Ellen Zakos's. Let me get this tab up here. I know it'll keep your name up, but let's show this here. We had Ellen Zakos on the show, and her book forage for wild foods, how to forage for wild foods without dying. That's one thing I love that little part to the title there too, without dying, because I guess that, that would be a big question everybody have about, like, again, mushrooms and different things are really risky, but there's a lot of stuff out there that you might not want to be picking and eating, but there's a ton of great things that you could just go out and forage for yourself and and utilize in your cooking and different things that you're eating as well.
Partly as a tribute to Ellen here to start this off, you've seen me sipping from a cup of tea. I am sipping nettle tea, which is, stinging nettle. That's one of the plants that she covers in her book. Now, I didn't forage this myself, but still, sometimes you get exposure to these things, and then some of this stuff becomes part of your diet or part of your routine. That's the beauty of a book, right? You don't know what you're going to get exposed to. You don't know how it's going to take your life in a different direction. So some of the stuff, just listening to her and reading this book, it's kind of like, all right, there's some things I want to try. There's some things I'm gonna try to make put into my life.
Yeah, exactly. And for me, I kind of look at things when I'm driving around or I'm out and about places and I see stuff just kind of, whether it's growing on the side of the road somewhere or out in a field or whatever. And I kind of look at all of that stuff a little bit differently and think, like, I wonder how much inside of that, whatever's growing there is actually some edible things that we can actually eat and enjoy as well too. And I'm still on the search for wild garlic. So I gotta find that.
Garlic, wow.
And that was one of the ones that we talked a lot about there too when we were interviewing her.
Yeah, I did again, like sort of like inspired by this. Now that I didn't go as far as she suggested. I did dig up some dandelion roots the other day, and I washed them all up and I sliced them thin and I dried them in my oven. I didn't fully. I tried to pan roast them after that, which I don't think gave the full flavor. But then I did make a little beverage out of it. It was interesting. I think I have a little ways to go in terms of my techniques. Luckily, dandelion's easy to get, so I'll try it again. She had suggested, though, and this, didn't leave my mind and is still part of my quest, that if you infuse cream with roasted dandelion roots, it is amazing. And you can make an amazing either ice cream or some, creme anglaise kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I still have that in the back of my mind from that talk with her that I'm still going to keep trying for that.
Yeah. And that's one of those easy ones. One of the first ones that I learned actually early on in my adulthood about how dandelions were actually edible. From my upbringing, I wouldn't have thought about that. And I think I might have mentioned this story in that conversation we had with Ellen. Was when I first got married, I think it was either our first or second anniversary, my wife and I went on a dinner train.
Oh, yeah.
With this, we're talking like 5-star chef, putting out all of this, great, amazing food and everything. But, out comes, before everything really gets started, the salad portion of the meal. And out they bring this salad, and I just remember it had dandelions, flowers just right there in the salad, and they placed that in front of both of us. And my wife, with a similar upbringing and background too, we both looked at the salad and looked back up each other like, what is this? We just paid all this money to get stuff we could have got out of our lawn.
Right.
What?
How much are we paying for this?
Yeah. And then I remember, I think we asked the person who was serving with us, I was like, yeah, they got these flowers edible, right? Or are they just kind of a garnish or something, that you kind of set aside or whatever? Like, no, you could eat them. And I think that was the first time we ever ate dandelions or thought about the fact that we could eat them. But yeah, you can. And not only that, as you were mentioning too, the roots, the stems, the leaves, the whole thing, it's one of those ones you can go and get and find a way to utilize the whole plant.
Yeah. Ellen was, really impressive. I had heard her last year at the Flower and Garden show talking about this book. And I just knew she was going to be a great guest because her manner of speaking is so fluid. She's so knowledgeable, and that proved true. I mean, she gave us she started us off in a great way, right? I mean, she really set the stage for some success.
Yeah, yeah. Again, to a really great start to our whole adventure here on the Gardening Book Club, and a great subject too, especially for that time as people were just getting going in their growing season and all of that, to be able to get out and explore the outdoors and think about all these different things that are growing out in the wild as well too.
One thing that I did, again, as a result of listening to her, is I did grow some stinging nettle up at the Noble Rot this year, and then we didn't
Yeah.
use it, but then I harvested the seed from it, and I actually just planted that in the grow room. So I'm trying to take this wild plant, more or less, and get it
Yeah.
in my cultivation for baby nettles, like as if it's like harvesting
Like
spring
a
nettle. Um,
microgreen, micro nettles.
Yeah, so I'll have more to report on that as time goes on because I just did my first planting, and I hope the seed is good. I hope I got a good result from it. So we'll find out.
Yeah, yeah. Again, too, that's another great reason for all of you out there too, as well, to get down in that description and check out Marc's link for his Instagram there. Go follow him on Instagram, and you'll be able to follow along with all these fun experiments that he's up to in his grow room and different gardens too. So I'm excited about hearing about how that works out and everything. In fact, kind of talking about microgreens there too, is you were the one who kind of introduced me to some other kind of different things, when it comes to
Mm.
microgreens and different flavors and things like that I wouldn't have normally thought of. I mean, I'm a pretty simple guy. I love pea shoots and different things like that, or my radish microgreens are great.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, you experiment with all sorts of great stuff though when it comes to microgreens.
We do have a world of food out there, Enoch, and it's like, uh, why? I mean, I think the focus on wild foods is a good corrective to how narrow our diet is. And
Yeah.
sometimes there's ways to take some of these wild foods and tame them a little bit. Like one thing that we grow at Noble Rot, which is really tasty and is really attractive for its shape, is something called buckhorn plantain.
Oh
And
yeah.
plantain's a weed that Ellen covers in here. This one has a particular leaf shape that's narrow and strappy. So it fits in well with like salads and things. But that's essentially a wild food that we're cultivating and using it. And the chefs love it. It's really wonderful. So just a lot of times there's even if you're not going for the exact food like that maybe is in a book like this, there might be
Mhm.
an analog, and just the fact that you recognize that it is edible, it's like, oh, I didn't know that was even edible, or I didn't even know I could try that. And then you might go off in a different direction, but you've gotten the initial inspiration from something like this.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And that's the best thing about all these books is just some great inspiration when it comes down to it, and for me, just being more of a general gardener and all that, who hadn't necessarily thought about or putting mind to the idea of going out and checking out the different things that are growing around me. There's a ton of stuff that are just growing around us all the time, and it just gives us a better, if anything, it gives us a better connection to nature and the things that are, growing right around us. And that sort of connection is really kind of important, and as important almost as the things that we're actually putting time to in our garden spaces.
Yeah, we need those wild spaces. And I've always said it's like the hunters, the fishers, and the foragers who are going to stand up to protect the wild spaces because they're the ones
Mm.
who are getting out there. They know
Yep.
that the subtle patterns. And, that was what a majority of people did a long time ago. They were hunters, fishers, and foragers. And
Yeah.
now it's the small select groups of people who still practice those things that sort of I think of as the guardians of our wild spaces.
Yeah, and we'll have to, and this is something to think about as well too as we move into next season, all of that. We'll have to maybe kind of revisit the idea of foraging when it comes to what a lot of people like to get out and do is go out mushroom hunting. So maybe we'll
Oh
have to do
my God.
something where we can focus on mushrooms and all of that as well too. And as Bettina was saying here as well in the comments, everything is edible once. Which really kind of comes down to the idea of what Ellen was talking about in this book too, is how to forage for wild foods without dying. Because yes, everything is edible once. And also, you know, on the idea of mushrooms too, where there's a lot of risk as well too, and you definitely want to know what you're doing and what you're about to eat and all of that as well if you're out foraging for mushrooms. So that's a great idea. I think maybe we could look at maybe getting Paul Stamets or something
Oh,
like
oh
that,
my,
and maybe get
wow.
him on here and talk about some mushrooms and all of that too.
All right. Should we?
All right. Yeah. So next book up, this one was really fun. This was one of those ones that he's been on our show. We've interviewed him and on our past seasons and all of that. Tony O'Neill from over in the UK. We had him here to talk about his new book, Simplify Vegetable Gardening. And really, in a way, too, this was a great kind of adventure into gardening science. And I
Yeah.
think that's one of the things that Tony is just really exceptional at is really taking a lot of these really complex scientific things that are going on in our garden and kind of just breaking them down for us in this book here.
Yeah. You know, I think the first chapter, first two chapters, uh, Tony spoke to those at the beginning of the interview because,
Mhm.
again, about his passion, he's recognized that there's such poor quality foods available to people, and you have to learn principles behind gardening. You have to learn principles of soil science. You have to learn about nutrients in the soil in order to get nutritious foods. You have to learn about ecological interactions. So I think, he was the first chapter just kind of talked about food waste in our planetary diet. And I
Mhm.
got a sentence here that I underlined. Our children will inherit a planet that has been severely degraded, with many
Yeah.
more people suffering from malnutrition and preventable diseases. So he's like, this is a call to action as much as it is a book on science. It's like, hey, we gotta get this right. Let's get this right.
Yeah, exactly. And in a way too, I think the term simplify kind of gets in there a little bit in this idea that you know, and he does a great job with the book and this sort of thing. But as you on that subject of what you're talking about is that there's so many people out there in the food industry that are trying to make things simple for people. They can just go and get it out of a box somewhere and add some water, and you know what I mean, or do certain things in a sense. So that's kind of the reverse idea of how simplifying things in industrial food production that can really not be a benefit for us. So
Absolutely.
in a sense is and that's the kind of idea of what all of that is doing as we're degrading things and leaving things for future generations and everything. And maybe we should complicate things a little bit more and get into really learning about what it takes to really grow nutritious good food and where to get and obtain that sort of stuff and how to get that into our diets more and all of that stuff so that we can hopefully avoid in some sort of way these sort of eventualities that are being brought about.
Yeah. One thing that I dog-eared, another page that I dog-eared was Tony. To me, he has given the most succinct, the most uh, targeted assessment of the things you need to have successful growth. So, in his third chapter, Optimizing Plant Growth, he lists 10 things. I'll just read them now because to me,
Yeah.
this is like a checklist for gardeners. Like if your garden is not growing well, go on this take this checklist and try to figure out what element is not correct. He says there's 5 above ground plant growth factors: light, temperature, humidity, airflow, and CO2 levels. He says there's 5 below ground growth factors: biodiversity, I think he means the soil ecosystem, water, root health, nutrition, soil temperature. Then he also lists genetics as an 11th one that's not really in the gardener's control once you've selected a certain thing.
Yeah.
But that is just, I mean, it's like, that is the smallest little chart I've ever seen where it's just like everything is packed together. And it's like, wow, I can just go through those and see if everything is adequate, just, it's a great summary. I find, it's like that page alone, I would have paid the whole, even though you sent me the book for free, I didn't pay for it, but I would have paid just for that page because that's a good page.
Yeah, yeah. And he just goes through all sorts of just great stuff, when it comes down to it. And in a sense, it's any one of these different parts of this book could be whole books on their own, just
Yeah.
going in depth and just really getting, deep into these different subjects and everything. And in really just a well done way of bringing it all to us in a more simplified, compact way, and just really enjoy this book. And he just really covers almost everything here.
Plus, he's a pro grower. I mean, when you get a Brit on, you got to watch out because, man, those guys are good, right? They
Yes,
they just got a huge tradition of gardening, and there's just some incredible pictures of him holding some like monstrous, like sized rhubarb leaves and stalks, and he just demonstrates that he knows what the heck is going on by being able to grow things. Steve Solomon's a guy who started Territorial Seed Company, and he's a real authority on Northwest gardening. And I think in one of his early books or early editions, he had the difference between grow with a small g and grow with a capital G. And it's like Tony knows how to grow with a capital G. He's like gigantic vegetables, and they look so lush. So he really has got it down. He's practicing what he preaches.
Yeah, yeah. In fact, Jay was mentioning earlier as we were asking about books, he's got a book called Water-Wise Gardening.
Oh,
it's a good one.
Great book. We got to do that. That's a great book.
Yeah. We might have to, again, too. Great suggestion, Jay. We'll probably have to look into that for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, Tony's great. I love talking with him. Again, such a wealth of knowledge about all this sort of stuff, and he can really just dig it. He's done the experiments and growing and all that sort of stuff, and kind of crazy too is one of the things that, kind of a bit about Tony as well. He's also a firefighter, so he's out there doing other things as well too, is from his gardening and how he finds time to get all this great knowledge to share with us about gardening and doing all of that too is great. So he's got a great personal story as well too, which is really another great part of being able to do this book club like we can with bringing these authors on with us, is to be able to learn just a bit more about them as people as well too.
As I remember the day, it was a third Sunday, maybe it was in April or something, but because of the time difference, Tony had just finished. It was the weekend, so he does most of his gardening on the weekends because he's firefighting during the week. But he had just finished like an 8-hour day in the garden. It was like 8. Then he was on with us, still in his something, right?
Yeah. That's one of the things you gotta love about the time difference.
Yeah. So man, I appreciated his dedication that day to give us an interview after a full day of gardening.
Yeah. Anything else about Tony's book there that you think's worth mentioning?
Just I got lots of charts. That's the other thing I think.
I think that's helpful for people too. Part of that whole simplifying things is, if we can see things in charts and all of that, it helps us, understand them just a little bit better too. And there's full of those great things as well.
Yeah, he breaks the veggies down in terms of their families, and then he looks at all the nutrition, the soil nutrients, and he gets real specific. So I think it's a good reference book too. I think it's one of these ones where you can read it, but not really going to get everything out of it. And on the first reading, you're going to have to go back and just keep plugging away.
Yeah.
It's a great book in that sense.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Exactly. One of those ones that you can just kind of keep up in your, kind of like I got different books. So I got bookshelves for, these are books I've liked, I've read of this and that. And then I've got other ones for my gardening where it's like, these are the books I use throughout the gardening season.
Yeah.
These are ones I'm pulling out constantly, referencing from and all of that. And this book is probably great for that bookshelf.
Right. I agree.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So rolling right along. And again, kind of as we was mentioning too, is that, we wanted to have some variety of different types of books in the gardening world as well too. We've got the one where we're out in the field looking for foraging. We're getting some science with Tony O'Neill. But when I found this next book, I just was like, this is just such a great, unique way of being able to relay some garden information is through storytelling. And so we had Christy Wilhelmi on to talk about her book, Garden Variety.
Yeah.
The Garden Variety is a fictional story about a group of people gardening out of a community garden down in Los Angeles. We've got Lizzie, and she's the main character, and she's just trying to get along in her community garden and through all of these different things that are going on. And the story's got tons of characters. It's got some, I don't know what you say. It's got a really huge issue they're dealing with throughout the book that kind of culminates, I don't know if you would say a good versus evil, but there's a bad guy and that sort of thing as well too. And there's just some just really good ways she blended these characters in a community garden to kind of show us. And this is one of the things I love. And we were just talking yesterday with our guest Brook Morgan yesterday about community gardens and all that. I love community gardens. I love community gardens because this is where we can get with other people in our community and connect over something that, a passion for growing and gardening and all that we share, and the community garden's a great place for that. And she did such a great job of taking the inspiration of her community garden and creating this fictional garden and characters and everything too. So this was just one of those ones when I knew we were doing the book club, I was like, we have to talk about and bring this book into it.
Yeah, it was, I don't have my copy because I loaned it to somebody else. So
right. Great. See?
Yeah. See, some of these books need to be shared. But I have to admit, in all my garden reading, I don't think I've ever read a fictional book on a book of garden. Well, I might have read one little one called Seed People, but mostly I tend to nonfiction. So this was interesting. Christy, I think from what I remember, she told us, she's a 30-year, besides being a garden designer and a pro helping other people design their garden, she's like a 30-year vet of community gardening, right?
Yeah.
Something along that line. So she really knows community gardening. And you're right. I mean, for so many people, it is the way they get the space. It is the way the place they can go if maybe they're an apartment dweller or
space is limited. You want to grow and garden, but you just don't have it available,
But then you rub shoulders with all kinds of people, and of course everything from antagonism to romance can bloom, and it all comes out in the book. All kinds of things are happening in that book. So I thought that was fun. The other thing I think like a novel can do, we're both kind of Pacific Northwest gardeners, but the novel, it kind of takes place over a year, and it shows you what a year in the life of another region is like in terms of the garden.
Yeah, and she's lucky that, and again, too, being able to tell the story through Southern California, where, they got a great year-round situation where she's at, so there's things going on and growing and doing all that. But it is kind of, we all have our years and seasons and everything. And it's really kind of interesting to, be able to dig into what a gardening season is like for others as well too.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I learned about that season, even I'm a little bit familiar with it because my wife's from LA, and we used to go down there a lot when her parents were alive. Um, but the August period becomes like the dog days, and that's almost like the gardener's time off down there because the winter's so mild that they can garden all through the winter, which is great.
Yeah.
And where sometimes we come to a halt when we start getting those freezes and bad,
Hmm.
and we take a break. They take their break in the hottest part of the summer when things are really almost like shut down by the heat. And
Yeah.
so it's an interesting way to have, downtime during the summer is an interesting concept because that just doesn't happen here.
Yeah, exactly. And that is one of the things too for, especially like for us on this show as well too, is that, we're always talking to different people from different places, whether it's Tony over in the UK,
Mm.
we got viewers from, Australia and different parts of the world, different parts of the States here where we have all sorts of different climates and everything. And, in the long run, we might not be getting specific garden information that is for us specifically for our gardens and all of that, but what we can get really is some great garden inspiration from other people and how they grow and how they work through their seasons.
And to be clear about it, Christy really does manage to put a lot of growing tips in.
Yeah.
A character say it or think it, but she actually packs a lot of gardening wisdom into those pages, even though it's fiction. Uh,
Yeah.
she's taking things that she wants people to know about gardening and from an organic perspective as well, and she gets it into the book. So it's fun how she works all that stuff in.
Yeah, I think that was one of the great things about the book that I took away from it was like, wow, there's actually like a lot of gardening information. Like, kind of what we were mentioning there as we were getting started here with this book is that, you know, um, there's lots of different ways to be able to convey information, but to be able to do it through storytelling, but then also come away from it and go, oh wow, that's a great tip. Like I found myself every now and then as I'm reading going, oh, I gotta find something to write down. I want to write this part, write this down, and it was just through, like you said, through an internet interaction between a couple of different characters or something, and she slips a gardening tip in there, that you can actually utilize.
Now, I believe that our interview with her was the first reveal of her new book. Is that correct? Because
Yeah, we broke news on that interview. That was great.
yeah, right. So she showed us she had a big, thick manuscript. There's a sequel coming, and
Hmm.
I think that was the first showing that it's like, here you guys go. You're seeing it, the first ones you've ever seen. It's like,
Yeah,
woohoo!
I think she was just about ready to send that off to the editors and all of that so that they can get working on the finalizing it and everything. So hopefully that'll be something that we'll be able to look forward to and have her back on, down the road and talk about that book as well too. Again, yeah, just a really great book. If you and for those of you or two who want some good winter reading as we're moving into winter and all of that too, this will be a great book for you. It's a great book for also not just gardeners. If you have a friend of yours out there who, just loves to read and loves reading different stories, different books and all that sort of stuff, this would make a great Christmas gift for your just in general, reader out there.
I got a little note that impressed me when we were talking with her. She had 89 rejections of the manuscript before
Hmm.
finally. So just talk about believing in yourself.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like all of us have various inspirations and such, and it can be hard to keep pushing on with whatever our little projects are, but once you push through, it's like now this book is out there, everyone's like, oh, this is a success, this is a great book. But 89 times she had to hear people say, this is not a success, this won't make it, we don't want this. And yet she pushed through with her vision to get this out in the
Mhm.
world. So wow, what a spirit she has.
Yeah, I definitely take a lot of inspiration from that part of our interview as well too, and the sort of things that I do, because again, as you're saying, and you were mentioning before about getting all these great authors and great people that we have on the show and all that sort of stuff, it takes a bit of determination and you got to stick with it, when it comes down to it, and I've found that that's been really kind of a helpful in the sense of what we do here too is just don't worry about the rejections, just keep moving forward, and and everything's going to keep working out and all of that as well too. And again too, she also talked about ideas that could you imagine this story being brought into a television series or something like that
Yeah,
as well too, because
yeah.
that would be fun, wouldn't it? Like for all of us garden nerds out there to have have available to us a fun television show with fictional characters and plot lines and drama and all that sort of stuff that all have to do with gardening and around a community garden. I think that would make it just an amazing show.
Yeah, you could do a lot of product placement too. It's like, now let me just take my Felcos and prune your toes here.
Yeah, exactly. Right. In
Yeah.
fact, wasn't it one of the characters in the book created a type of pruner or something like
Well,
that, I
no,
believe?
yeah, let me try to remember this. It was about the Felco pruners,
Yeah.
and she referenced something about the original creator of the Felco pruners or something. So in that book, so she was putting these little historical references in there too.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, I don't want to give away too much of the plot line on that, but yeah, it's a great book. You're going to want to read this one. And I do believe, again, as well, I want to mention to everybody, thank Jay Dixon. She's been putting in links into our chat there. So I'm sure there's a link in here too, to where you can find a way to get one of these copies of this book or any of our books we're talking about today and get a copy for yourself. And like I said, this one makes a great gift for just anybody. If you know someone who likes to read, this will be a great gift, especially for your garden readers out there. It'd be a fun read over the winter time and all of that as well too.
Yeah.
Right on, right on. So this next one was one. Okay, so we did mention about how we love to get out and get out to the Northwest Flower and Garden Show, and that was one of the fun things that we got to do
Okay.
a couple of times that we've been to that show is to see Cisco Morris, someone we've known in the Pacific Northwest for many, many years. He's been on the radio and television, doing all sorts of gardening education and all of that as well too. And so this one was a huge one for both of us personally, because again, he's been such a huge inspiration to our garden journeys. And man, is this guy just something else? He is so funny. And the interview was just as funny too, as well too. He just brings so much humor to gardening, and I just think it's just it was so great to get him. I had him on the show last year for a great interview, but again, as we were planning and putting together our book club, we knew we had to include Cisco Morris in his book Ooh La La, and I think you put up the other one that he has, Ask Cisco.
Yeah.
He has another book called Ask Cisco, which answers some really great garden questions, because he did a radio show where you could just call in and he would talk with you through different things, issues, or how to plant things, all sorts of different garden information, wealth of knowledge, probably about 50 years of gardening knowledge and everything there.
I mean,
But yeah,
Cisco's journey. Well, first of all, just the Ask Cisco, which is, I had read that first before I read this other one. It is his first book. This is a Q&A, so it's just literally the format is, a question is posed and he gives the
yeah,
answer. He definitely spices things up with little anecdotes, but
yeah,
in Ooh La La, it's full on storytelling. That's just what he's trying to.
so good at.
He actually said they wanted him to do an updated version of Ask Cisco, and he's like, "No, I want to do the full on storytelling." And being Cisco, I guess they said, "All right, go ahead." And I'm sure it's been a wild success. So he's just so good at telling stories, and right from the beginning, again, here's this thing about sometimes when you read books, you just discover things about people. He
Yeah.
tells a story in the beginning that he's from this family of storytellers. His parents were vaudeville entertainers, and they would come home at night and they would, talk about all the things that they had seen during the course of their workday with all these characters that they were working with. And he says, like all of his, I think it's dedicated to his brothers and sisters. He says to the four survivors. So I think there were other brothers and sisters, the best storytellers I know. So, I could just, part of me wants to try to schedule a Cisco family reunion and just be a fly on the wall.
Right.
Here, like, what is the level of storytelling? If he thinks his brothers and sisters are the best storytellers he knows, and he's already this incredible storyteller, it's like, what is that family like? I mean, it really is just amazing.
Yeah, could you imagine just being around the kitchen table, listening to those guys go on and on about different things? It would be a crack up for sure.
Yeah, I mean, Cisco. I think the book is full of humor, of course, and really wonderful things. But it is also the story of a brave person
Oh
who
yeah.
decided, back in maybe in the 70s or maybe early 80s, that the spray and pesticide driven philosophy of gardening wasn't going to
Hmm.
be his way, and he actually had to take some personal risks in a lot of situations where his reputation was on the line when he veered off the standard course and said, look, we want to do something with IPM or no spray or low spray, or we got to get rid of this thing. And he worked for 25 years or so up at Seattle U in Washington, was the
Yeah.
groundskeeper, and he really took that institution and probably lots of others with him in the direction of ecological grounds management. So I think,
Yeah, yeah. He might not have been the person who's really created those ideas in the garden, but I think he's one of the top individuals who took that to the next level and made people more aware of that sort of stuff. I mean, like you're saying, we're talking about, mid late 70s, early 80s, this sort of time. And even at that time, people didn't think of chemical use in the way we do today. To them, in previous generations from that as well too. I mean, and we touched on that as well, is that, there used to be trucks that used to go around and spray DDT throughout neighborhoods and
yeah,
all of that. I talked with a person from LA where they used to have helicopters that would fly around and spray chemicals right down onto the city and to everybody and all this sort of stuff, is that, they had a different concept of what those chemicals were and how they interacted with us, as human beings, and it took people like Cisco to kind of bring this forward and bring these ideas forward to let people know, hey, that's not a good idea. And there are other ways of doing this stuff. In fact, nature works in some pretty awesome ways. And if we can work to find ways to incorporate it into our practices, like, IPM, integrated pest management and things like that, then we can find real natural solutions to this stuff and not have to subject ourselves to these dangerous chemicals.
yeah. He one memorable story is when he arrived at Seattle U. I think one of the first things he observed was this paint. One of the paint guys was also hired to spray, and he had this rig he would drive around with a huge, like 50-gallon bucket with this toxic whatever it was in there, all sloshed.
Yeah.
Every time he'd go around a corner, some of it would slosh out into the street and such. And then they would just come and indiscriminately just spray the trees. Like it didn't even matter if there was a pest seen there or not. They would just do this program. It was totally robotic and automatic and totally
Yeah.
harmful. So, just things like that is like, oh my God, what a lack of sensitivity at the time. And again, it takes brave people to buck that system because it doesn't just change on its own. People usually just continue whatever they're doing because it's
Hmm.
so. Cisco, my hat's off to him as a writer, gardener, and also just like as a hero protecting the earth. I appreciate that.
Yeah, yeah. And like someone was saying, what was this comment here? He's like, I never heard of Cisco, making him sound like Mark Twain of gardening. In a way, too. And you want to get this book. I'm telling you, go get this book. Ooh la la. Ooh la la is like his catchphrase. If you've ever listened to him on the radio or on TV and all of that, ooh la la comes up all the time. But one of the things that, again, me and you have got to go see some of his talks that he's done at the Northwest Flower and Garden Show. And we mentioned the first time we got to go see him was that, you go into this garden talk, you're going to go learn about some gardening and all of that, but you end up at a comedy show where the whole crowd is actually laughing the most of the time, because he's just such a great storyteller with humor. And again, to kind of like what we were talking about with Christie's book there too, there's just really, great ways, whether through storytelling, through humor, that we can bring about and be able to teach things in the garden as well too. And those are ways that and through that, I think they stick with us maybe just a little bit more.
Yeah. To your point about who is this guy, Cisco, I think while we were interviewing him, people were saying that same thing. And then they were literally, I think it came across in the comments, people were ordering the book online at the very moment he was speaking, because they couldn't believe, like, what kind of a guy is this? What kind of a character is this? He's so funny. He's so engaging. It's like, I got to get this book. And they were in the moment of listening to the interview, there was people saying, I'm ordering this book right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that was
you gotta get,
awesome.
yeah. So you gotta get it. You gotta get every one of these books that we're talking about and all of that. But this one's a great one. You will not be disappointed in learning about that, and especially again to what you touched on there too. Because I'm glad you brought that up. Is what kind of a pioneer he really was at that time, and what he was doing there at Seattle U, and being able to also, through that knowledge and through those things he learned himself as he was learning to do things differently, is now able to teach and share with all of us that we can apply in our own gardens, in our own techniques and strategies that we use in our spaces.
We could go on and on about Cisco, but man, I probably we should leave it there and go on to our next author. Yeah,
for sure. Again, we could talk, and we'll have to. Again, I'm sure we'll get Cisco back on the show in one form or fashion down the road and everything. But such a great, valuable person in my mind to the whole gardening community. But one of this next book though too, and I learned about this book and have kind of met Karen Hugh of this book, Leave Your Troubles Behind, through another community I'm involved in, that and they were mentioning this book, and so I got the book to read it and also kind of support her through this other community as they were suggesting it, and just completely fell in love with this book. It's just a really, really great book. And obviously you can kind of tell where we're going or where the book is going by the title. It's Leave Your Troubles Behind, How to De-Stress and Grow Happiness Through Plants. And this is literally something I love to talk about a lot on this show. And I like to get different people and different folks who are out there, in social media, through YouTube channels, authors, other people who can talk to this sort of subject just a bit more. Because the one thing I never really understood I was going to get from gardening and growing and everything when I first got started was that mental health aspect of things. The idea that getting out in my garden space can really relieve me of different things and different stuff I'm going through, whether it's personally or at work or in just the world at large. That the garden space is a great escape from things that really stress us out.
What I want to say about this book is, when you first told me about it, the little pun in the title, Leave Your Troubles Behind, I thought it was going to be something kind of cutesy. I was willing to go along with it. It's like, all right, Enoch wants to do this book. That's fine.
Yeah.
First of all, as soon as I started reading it, I was like, all right, I'm in the hands of a very skilled writer here, somebody who really knows what she's doing. And I'm being gently guided between stories and other points and research, and it was just like so easy and smooth. I'm like, okay, this is not just any cutesy little book. Second of all, like you said, she studies, she goes into the science of happiness, like how
Mm-hmm.
human beings are actually happy, what research has shown, and then how she shows how it can all be done through plants, through gardening, and it was the greatest, most empowering thing. I've been going back to this again. Like she's got one of these little nugget lists that I've got uh, dog-eared, and it talks about learning, experiencing with our senses, idleness and playfulness, supporting a life, like taking care of something, uniting with other like-minded people, recognizing and being grateful for what's, what our experiences, and
Yeah.
then exercising outside. And it's just
Yeah.
like, that is such a great, again, succinct list of what it takes to be happy. And then all her chapters just go through and showing you how, if you're a gardener, you can design this into your life. So
Mm-hmm.
what a gift.
Yeah, and as well as that too, she sprinkles in all these different little activities to kind of get you going and getting you
Yeah.
started. So you might sometimes read a book and get some information, but then you're like, well, okay, how do I apply this, or how do I
Mm,
get working on this, and in my personal life, my everyday life, what I'm doing. And she really just goes into it. She gets into what it's about, and then here's something you can do, and you can get started with right away.
yeah. Also super honest. I mean, she's like very honest about her personal life in there, and things that were super challenging for her. How she used to be a worked for Amazon, I think, or some kind of
Yeah,
on the screen kind of thing, and just how draining that was, and how it was like stealing her life away. So her own journey is written through this, and it's really interesting. And now she's a garden designer. She actually shifted over to be a garden designer. She also
yeah,
writes, I think she's written 4 garden related mysteries. So she's got this whole,
yeah, yeah. Getting back to the idea, and this might have to be one of the things how we can get maybe her back maybe this next year or something like that, and talk again too, like we were talking about Christie's nonfiction book, or fiction book anyways, and she wrote a couple of books of fiction and talking about different things in gardening too, so that would be fun as well, I think.
I think they're all murder mysteries, if I remember.
Right. Yeah, yeah. So
So
how,
we got to
how
get one
fun would it be?
this coming year.
Yeah, definitely. But again, too, similar like like what you were talking about though too. I didn't know what to expect when I first got this book as well too, and I'm just kind of glad it's one of my favorite books when it comes down to it. And again, one of my more favorite subjects about that, because there's so many different aspects of gardening and how gardening can help improve our own health. We actually had Dr. Jeff on a few weeks back and talking about some different things. For one, how gardening can be a healthy endeavor for us, and whether it's the food we get to eat, that's one of the first things I think we get to understand or think about. If I'm going to grow my own food, I'm going to be growing more nutrient dense, delicious food, better than the supermarket, right out of my own garden. That's great. That's one of the things that we get from it. And then there's also too, and I think you mentioned in that list as well that she talks about too, is just the idea of getting up out of our seats, out of our chairs, and getting
Yeah.
out into the garden. So there's that physical health aspect that we get from growing in a garden. And then what this book really digs deep into is that, again, to or mental, psychological, these sort of things that really I think is probably one of the more important aspects of what we get from the garden, is that de-stressing, that relieving ourselves from things that are going on. And also kind of mentioned in that list too, I mean, again, what you mentioned, whether it's personal, it's something at work, family, whatever, that sort of thing, but also the world at large. We don't
Mm.
have to dig in too much about specifics or anything, but the world feels really crazy to most everybody out there right now. and building community, doing certain things and activities that you can find in this book to kind of help relieve some of that we're all feeling, this weight on our shoulders.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's what's really great about the gardening space as well too, is that we can find some great de-stressing activities, especially some of the ones that she mentions in this just really awesome book.
Yeah, and plants are those non-judgmental partners to our lives, that really support us in so many ways as we support them. So, yeah, it was just a great introduction and a grounding in all of that. One of the things that I'll just highlight one section that I really liked is she says, she has a section of building a potager that I'll never plant. And a potager is kind
Yeah.
of a French style vegetable and herb garden. And she has this imagination space that she goes into where she designs this elaborate garden, and she doesn't even have room for it or the time to take care of it. She's got a garden, but this particular thing is just purely for imagination. But she says just that alone is so beneficial to her, just this act of imagining a garden. And the way I related to it was that, with the seed catalogs, as the seed catalogs roll in, it's like I'm imagining the garden that I'm going to grow next year.
Yeah.
And, I wanted to have all the melons and all the hot peppers. And I know I'm not going to grow all those, but I'm looking at this page. And I'm like, I will grow all of this stuff in my imaginary garden.
Yes.
I will have the time to grow it and take care of it all and prepare it and eat it. And I know that's not going to be the case, but there's something so healthy about just having that imagination.
Yeah, and you're right too. And what a way to get through like the winter, the gloomy, dark winter time as well. We were mentioning growing microgreens and getting our lights set up indoors and all of that. But another, part that's really helpful too is in that garden planning. I'll get papers out and I'll chart up all of my different garden spaces, and I'll do different ideas and plan out, like you're saying, go through my seed catalogs, go, okay, well, I can put some of this over here and some of that over there, and just let my imagination kind of run wild with my different spaces about the different things I can do and all of that. And that is really as de-stressing as the gardening itself is too, by utilizing our imagination.
Yep. So stuff like that. She talks a lot about idleness, which I think is a really great virtue in our world today. Just really not having to produce anything. I mean, her life, as she describes it at Amazon, was so stress-filled and so deadline-oriented.
Mm-hmm.
The life of so many people in so many different professions these days. And just going out into the plant world is just like the plants are just growing. They're just doing their thing. They have their own timelines, and we can just relax into that. We don't have to do anything,
Yeah.
because even gardening can have its own list of to-dos. And sometimes in your free time, you feel like you've got more to do than you do in your work life.
Yeah.
So there's also that element of just relaxing and enjoying nature that she brings to the fore that I really appreciated as well. And just letting it be nature. It's just out there. It has its own, it knows how to take care of itself.
Yeah.
Just enjoy it and benefit from it in a very low stress way. So I really appreciate it.
And finding your way of connecting with all of that too. And, and even more so on that sort of sense of the idea of the world we're all feeling right now too, is that this is a great opportunity for those who are feeling stressed out about a lot of stuff, is to kind of turn to nature, turn to your growing and garden space, and find some of that relief from a lot of that. And also too, as we've also talked about, community gardens through Christie's book too. These are great places for us to get to and to find others who share in that sort of same interests and passions and things like that, so that we can find and build community as well too. So it's one thing to go out on our own into our garden spaces, but it's also a great thing to also reconnect ourselves with others as well too, because that's kind of an important part too, is building a good sense of community around us. And I'll just say one of the things I've talked about throughout this year as well too is that garden spaces, whether it's at home, like for me, I've got a very public space where people can walk through and all of that. So I get to talk to a lot of my neighbors and all of that by the stuff that I'm doing out there and everything. But that connection with community, it really helps us out. And our garden spaces can really be a good common ground, so that no matter what our backgrounds are, what our political belief systems are, all of that sort of stuff, we can find that space and then find each other and then kind of restart that conversation that's really important for us all to have within the garden space too. And in that way too, helping us reconnect with people can be a good way to really help us de-stress about things. Right? We don't feel so, terrorized or whatever by the things that we're feeling out there too, that we can find that mutual relationship with others and then kind of, go through it all together in a way too.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes with your neighbors, you just got to keep the conversation focused on the eggplant and the lettuce. You don't want to go much further than that, but at least you can still have a connection with them. You can share food with them. You can do all kind of stuff and still have a connection where you don't have to just like turn
build that,
because they're going to say something that offends you.
Yeah. Well, then it helps us to be less offended. In the
Yeah.
long run too, is that when we're building that relation over something that we both have a passion about and we both care about and that sort of stuff, and whether our ideologies are different, we can now kind of touch on some of those conversations in a different way than we would with, say, somebody online. And I think that's one of the biggest problems we've had, as far as people, is that, there's just too many online conversations where we don't get to know each other face to face. So we dig ourselves into our spaces because we're not having that community. And I think gardening is such a great way to help rebuild a sense of community around things with people who have different opinions than us as well too. So again, lots of great things in there. We don't want to get too far into a tangent and all of that,
Great book.
Great book there by Karen Hugh, Leave Your Troubles Behind. Again, another great book you'll want to get your hands on for sure. This next book I thought was kind of going to be kind of great because, again, too, we were kind of heading in a political election year and all of that too. So I thought it would be kind of great to dig into some kind of American history as we were running up to that thing, and then apply that to gardening and all of that. And boy, oh boy, I got this book, and I've actually had this book on my shelf for quite a few years. So as we were thinking about the book club, and then I saw this book, I was like, oh, this would be a great one just because of the timing and everything. And I was really, really surprised at just how much I love this book. And I've always been kind of a history buff, but digging into this book and getting this sense of our country's history through gardening and garden spaces was just absolutely amazing. Marta was really awesome and full of just great knowledge, and she's got so many other great books too. She might have to be another one we'll have to put on that list to have back sometime too. But this book was just amazing.
I mean, we learned so much about, and talk about another skilled writer, somebody very competent. I mean, she initially had the challenge to write a book about the history of American gardening, and she's like, too big. So her way of focusing it is so interesting. It's to look at what's gone on at the White House as an example of the trends in American gardening and the influence, and even beyond that from Europe as well, like what was coming over from Europe, the dominant ideas, and then how did America, how did the US find its own way, its own expression of gardening and landscaping. So it's it's much bigger than just the vegetable garden, of course, but she does treat, like, for example, Michelle Obama's vegetable gardens there at the end. Kind of this book there. She has done a little revision, she said, right, to include the latest administrations. But we were going up to the Michelle Obama, the Obama garden years. But again, just fascinating. Like, I'm sure stories or anecdotes must jump out at you, right? Like things you remember.
Oh yeah, tons of great ones. One of my actually again too, one of my favorite things early on in the book is, we all know our founders, we all know these people and have learned throughout our history classes growing up and other reading we might do as well. But our very first president, George Washington. You know what I mean? I thought it was so fascinating to think that, if George Washington was alive today, he'd probably be in the chat in our for our show and all of that. He was a garden nerd, this guy. He loved garden. He loved his garden books. You know what I mean? He'd be participating in our garden book club and all of that, and he loved going to the nursery and just going through and perusing different things and thinking about how that could, work in his spaces at his own personal garden, because again, he didn't get to garden or create any of the gardens at the White House, because the White House was after his presidency and all that. But it was still kind of a part of the whole how that came about. And some of that sort of stuff was because of George Washington's influence as the first, not just the first president, but the first gardener in
Yep.
our American history.
And the other thing, the one, it's the book has, so, besides being really well written, has so many historical images, which is fascinating.
Yeah.
And one of the ones that really captured my attention was this whole, where the West Wing, if you've watched the TV show, or we're so used to thinking about the West Wing of the White House. Well,
Yeah.
used to be a giant conservatory, glass houses, and around the turn of the century, or maybe a little earlier, I think they used to entertain diplomats in the greenhouse. There was like an orangery and all these tropical plants,
Yeah.
and that would open up into part of the White House, so you could have a formal dinner in the White House, and then you could just stroll out for tea and dessert amidst the tropical plants with all the beautiful fragrances and the humidity. And it's like, oh my God, let's bring that back. That sounds like that could be a very nice thing.
Yeah, yeah, and they were really, and that was one of the things I was kind of really surprised about in that sense of how they were really experimenting with a lot of stuff. You think about, Maryland in that area, to think of growing citrus and stuff, but they were building these cool greenhouses and orangeries, as they called it, and just really working and experimenting with season extension and all that sort of stuff. So early on, that was just really kind of fascinating about it. One of my other favorite stories too that kind of came out of the book was learning about Abraham Lincoln's wife, and probably one of the first like White House scandals of her, between her and the White House gardener at the time, moving funds around.
Yes. Yeah.
That
And
was kind of great.
exactly, using the garden budget for a little bit more than gardening, right?
Right. Exactly.
To cover some of her spending habits.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's just, it's interesting in that, of course it's a garden story, it's a landscape story, but again, it's a very human story.
Hmm.
Yeah. The personalities of the different, John Quincy Adams, for example, I remember he has an incredible attachment to trees. I mean, he really
Yeah.
became dedicated, and he would follow his White House gardener around. He really wanted to know and learn, about all the species, the names. It seemed like it was a refuge for him amidst the stress of politics. Like, he really took refuge in that, and then
Yeah.
did so many different kinds of trees and such. It's really cool to hear some of those stories.
Yeah, yeah, and you gotta imagine too that the political landscape of any of these times throughout our history, has gotta be, is different for us to kind of understand. It kind of takes us back to what we were saying before too, in the sense of, how gardening can be an escape from a lot of this stuff. And just imagine being the top guy, you know
Yeah,
what I mean? For all of whatever the political landscape is, you're the guy at the top of this. It's got to be very stressful. So it makes sense that gardening played such a big role for these guys as well too. I
yeah.
hate, yeah,
And some of the presidents just wanted a patio to sit on. They just wanted a space for tea. They might not have been very invested in the plants themselves,
hmm,
but it's just based on their personal preferences. And
Yeah.
Yeah, each one took a different level of involvement from some of them, like you said, like Washington and Jefferson, maybe John Quincy Adams being some of the most literate in terms of the plants and the plant world and the landscaping philosophies of the day, to others just kind of sitting back and just accepting what was there without much change at all. So it's interesting to see who
Yeah.
garden activists have been.
Yeah, yeah. And again, too, so many fun stories, not just about the White House, too. There's a bunch of other aspects of history that she brings in that are kind of plant related. I'll just leave with this one other one I thought was really great is she talks about the Shakers.
Yeah.
And, we've talked about some of these seed companies, the seed catalogs and stuff that, are the first ones that are showing up at our doors right now. But these guys were really kind of that first kind of seed company in a way, making some of those first seed packets as well. I thought that was really cool.
I think another thing we learned, the grounds of the White House used to be totally open for strolling, and the whole park-like setting, actually, a lot of this was driven by the way cemeteries were
Yeah.
developed, a new approach to cemetery design, taking from more of a graveyard to the idea of a cemetery being like a sleeping or resting place, and from
A park.
Massachusetts, there was a kind of the first park-like cemetery, and then that went on to influence the whole park movement in the U.S., including how the White House grounds were developed. So some of those historical threads are really fun to find out about and really interesting to investigate.
Yeah, yeah, and you can imagine too, kind of maybe led up to later years as we started, the appreciation for these natural spaces, whether they're some of those first parks, the cemeteries, the the Capitol, White House itself, these sort of things were probably a real inspiration to the value of these types of spaces that we have. And we're looking at this wide, vast West as they were moving towards that. I believe it was Roosevelt who started and implemented the national parks program to create national parks. So I'm sure in the long run, some of that stuff was, part of that story, how we, valuing these natural spaces that we have and protecting them.
Maybe we'll end or this book with this. One thing I found interesting from Marta's perspective, the author, Marta McDowell, was that, because of the increased security now in the White House and the kind of risk state that we live in, the grounds are only open once or twice to the public per year. So
Right.
even she was the author of this book and doing all this research, it was quite a while in to the book, or maybe even the book was near publication, when she got her actual first look at the grounds. I mean, she describes the book, but she really wasn't coming and going all the time. She was doing all this research in other places, and she only put on the grounds once herself. So that was intriguing.
Yeah, kind of showing you the sense of that space and how it's changed over the years. Like you mentioned, it used to be a place where the public could just walk right up there and walk right through like no problem. And today, in a more secure world we live in now, I remember it was back in, I think it was 06 was when I got to go to Washington, D.C. and stand at the front gates and look at this big wide yard and different landscaping, gardens and things like that too, and just thinking like how cool it would be to get to walk around in there and all of that. But no, we can only get as far as that gate.
Yeah.
And then again too, to get around and do all this sort of stuff, you got to get through all that red tape. There's tons of different red tape to get through to be able to get in and see that stuff. But it's such a great opportunity for you to be able to do that and get right through that gate without having to do any of that red tape or anything, right from your own living room, by reading this just really amazing book that Marta wrote about all the president's gardens or White House gardens throughout history. And again, too, just an awesome book. So, all right, let's get down to it. Our very last book that we just had this last month. Just such a great conversation we got to have. And this, again, too, is probably one of my, and I mentioned in our question for Sunday Q&A today, what is your favorite gardening book? And if you all still have suggestions, drop them into our chat and everything right now. I love most all these authors, all these books. I love books in general. I still got a ton more and maybe down the road. But I have to say that This one really, you know, became one of my ultimate favorite books when I found
Mhm.
this this last year. And again, too, it's just kind of, and then again, too, the first conversation I got to have with Ashley and everything, she really poured a lot of heart and soul into what she's talking about with this book. And this is really a great place for anybody who's just getting into gardening. I mean, this book is, it's called How to Become a Gardener, and again, it's a great place to start in kind of showing us what, not just how to get started with gardening and what but what gardening means and what it can mean to you, what it means to
Yeah.
her, the discoveries she made in the process of her becoming a gardener. It just really lays it out so well, and she's so well spoken about that as well.
She really is. That was another thing about, I love the book and the read of it, but to talk with her, uh, I learned a little bit more about her background, and she's got a science research background, so she's bringing that kind of intellectual curiosity about the natural world. But then her personal background is also very interesting, and
Hmm.
coming from the South, coming from areas where there are some serious food deserts, and then she introduced this other word called term called food swamps, where
Yeah,
there's an abundance of food, but it's all non-nutritional stuff. So for
yeah,
her, the passion that I really sensed there, and that actually was very emotionally moving to me at the end of the interview, was that this is food sovereignty. We're taking power into our hands as we become gardeners,
yeah,
because it's almost like you can't trust the rest of the system to deliver you the good stuff. There's so many forces acting against our health.
hmm,
Not to be like a conspiracy person or anything, but just the way everything from like the remnants of slavery in the South, and poor poverty in some of these rural communities, everything from that to the modern industrial profit driven food system.
yeah,
We really can't trust the systems anymore to deliver the things that we need, and we have to take a personal stake in it, and
yeah.
responsibility for our own food and nutrition. It's really a manifesto for that.
It really is. It really is. And that's again too, like in the title, find empowerment in creating your own food security.
Yeah, that
And
that
that's kind
was
of,
more actually almost than just how to become a gardener. But
yeah. And I've always talked about how that was huge for me and kind of understanding. I mean, I grew up, with the SAD, we call it SAD, SAD, Standard American Diet.
yeah,
So I mean, I grew up with this, and that sort of thing. So when I first found gardening and growing my own food, even though I could only do so much out of my little back patio space and grow so much out of these little containers and all of that, it showed me how empowering growing my own food could be. I might not be able to grow everything for myself, but by just growing the little bit that I did, I found such a better connection to what my food means to me. And then made me and helped me look at, again, to these others, processed foods and all this other sort of stuff that's out there, and what that also means to me as well too. And in these systems, these food systems, that are out there, are only taking more and more away from the value, more and more away from us, whereas we've really got to dig inside ourselves, inside our, again, bring back up gardening community again, all that sort of stuff, to start empowering ourselves again when it comes to food and understanding exactly what that means for us. And we can find that through our own gardens, through our own growing experience, and that'll empower us so much more. And she does such a great job of taking us through that in this book.
yeah. What I like too is, a lot of times, once you get to be a gardener like us, it certain things you just assume so many things that are known, but somebody who's just starting out, the people we really want to join the movement, they can be so intimidated by these things, and maybe they try something like my daughter lives in, she lives in an apartment in Brooklyn, and she wants to start growing her own lettuce. So I
Yeah.
sent her all the stuff. I ordered some good quality potting soil and some good seeds, and I sent that to her. And then she said, I tried and nothing came up. So I'm like, okay, we got to troubleshoot. But as a novice gardener, it can be hard. There's a lot of failures along the way. We had them, but they're so far back now that we don't remember how discouraging it was. So I think Ashley speaks to that. She's at the same time as she's offering a really uh, important and very sophisticated vision about food empowerment. She also just takes you by the hand and says, like, hey, here's a bunch of the mistakes that I made. I was
Yep.
discouraged. You're going to be discouraged. Don't worry about it. This is how to get past that. Here's like 15 basic tools you should get. That just like she goes over and touches the basics so that people can
Yeah.
entry point into this.
Yeah, and again, too, one of the things I thought was really great too, and we've touched on that again, like with what Cisco is doing in his book and all of that, is our relationship to these other organisms and things that are a part of our garden system as well too, which could be something that gets a lot of new gardeners to pull back from, because it's like, oh, wait a minute, I'm not in it for all the bees and the wasps and these sort of things. But she does a really great job of kind of showing us our relationship with all of that to help make people a little bit more comfortable with the idea that that's part of the gardening experience too. So there's just so much great valuable stuff for I guess not just, but really, for a beginner gardener, for someone who's just getting into this whole thing. But I think there's a lot of value for just gardeners of any experience level, but just such a great place to get started.
Yeah, and I think it does really remind us of why we're doing this. I mean, I know there's a lot of reasons. People have a lot of different reasons, and it could be, like you said, to de-stress. It could be just for the health, for the exercise. But this idea of food empowerment to me is so basic, because it really is. It is actually literally who we are, right? One of the
Hmm.
Besides clean water, food's the next thing we really just
Yep.
absolutely need, and we need it every day, more or less. Um, and really looking at how we can take gardeners, we're an incredible resource to preserve genetic diversity. And the more people understand this, grow their own food, grow unusual varieties, grow cool things, breed their own plants, do all this kind of stuff in their own little home gardens. That's what's going to
Right.
keep the food system healthy, booming, nutritious. So
Yeah.
we really do need people to take this up in an age where we're retreating indoors and we're retreating into our little silos. We got to be out,
Yeah.
be the front yard warriors like you are, talking with neighbors, sharing produce, sharing tips, talking about the crops, just letting people see that this is how a garden in front of a house should be the norm. It shouldn't be the clipped lawn. uh,
Yeah.
this is all part of how we do our food system at this time in history.
Yeah, yeah, and we've got, and I think it's really important that those are the sort of messages that are going out there to folks, so that they can reconnect again with not just your food, but yourself, your community, all of this sort of stuff, which is really just important for all of us, on an individual basis, and again, great book, great read. All of these reads are just really awesome. Again, we've went through 7 books so far this year. We've got so much more coming to in the coming months as well, and I'm just really looking forward to 2025 and everything. So again, just real quick, one last maybe reflection on our 2024 season for you, Mark.
Well, I mean, it rocked my world, really, just to start this journey of reading the books and talking with the authors. I mean, I don't think my gardening life is going to be the same. I think this is just something like, once you discover something really good, you need it as part of your life, right?
Yeah,
So it's just like this just confirmed. It's like, yeah, I need this. We're doing it. Eat it. I don't care if 0 people are watching. We're doing it for ourselves first,
that's
and
right.
whatever we can share with anybody else, that's gravy.
That's exactly right. And again, too, it's been such an awesome, wonderful experience for both of us. I think this has probably been one of the best ideas coming out of this whole Let's Get Growing show idea and everything. So I'm glad that we finally connected with it this year. And again, too, you're such a great friend of mine and been a part of this gardening journey I've been doing online, pretty much since the very beginning. And I couldn't imagine doing it with anybody else. So, it's just awesome that we do get together, get together
What?
each and every third Sunday of the month to be able to have a fun conversation with not just each other, but to also, be able to talk with some of these just amazing authors.
Well, Karen Hughes' point is, I guess we're living proof of it. Gardening can bring people together, and it unites us, and it helps create friendships that are really lasting and really wonderful. So, I think she's right on. I do think this though, that we did a little throwdown with Ashley. I was in Detroit, and it turned out that she has family in Detroit, and I
Yeah.
might have mentioned that we were going to try in 2025 maybe to get us all to Detroit and do some programming from there. So that could be something. That's something that we're going to talk more
Oh
about.
yeah. Yeah, we definitely got to figure that out and do that because that would be great. It'd be great to get. I met her down at the National Heirloom Exposition last year.
Mm,
So it'd be fun to kind of do an adventure with all three of us. Again, you touched on too. We did show a clip of some kind of urban agriculture going on right there in Detroit. They've got some really great. I think one of the biggest community gardening programs and all that there in Detroit as well. A part of their whole city rebuilding process as well too. I think
yeah.
there's a lot there that we could just really just really dig into, and I think that would be such a great adventure for our show.
Yeah. So, there might be some travel in our future.
Yeah,
Coming up in
definitely. Yeah, definitely. And coming up real soon, though, too. Again, we'll be getting together here real soon for the Seattle Flower and Garden Show. We'll get to meet
Oh, yeah.
up with some of our authors that'll be there as well, too, and just kind of have some a fun time there, too. But that's one of the things I'm kind of looking forward to in 2025 is possibly just maybe getting out of the living room a little bit more and get out there and have some fun garden adventures for our show and everything. But again, like I said, we've had such a great time so far. 7 months, 7 great authors, 7 just really amazing gardening books, and we're going to just continue that on. We've got one more book to finish up our growing season coming up here for December. And
Yeah.
so again, let's announce our new December gardening book club selection. We've got How to Grow Your Soil
Your
by
soil.
Diane Meisler. Grow
Yeah.
Your Soil.
This is going to be good. This is a great book. I read it. I did a little review of it last year on my, or 2 years ago on my Instagram. I thought it was so good. And I'm just really, and once again, eager to talk with Diane. There's a lot of, it's accessible, but there's a lot of great research in here too. And the soil is where it all starts. So,
Yeah.
you'll never, your efforts to boost your soil will always be repaid in gardening. You'll never waste any effort if you're boosting your soil. That's always good.
Yeah, exactly. And again, too, it's where it really all comes down to, uh the soil is the medium of our garden. It's where everything starts and begins in a sense. And the healthier our soil is, the more we know about our composition of our different soils and what we're amending into our soils, making sure all that microbiology and all of that sort of stuff and fungi and that our soil is just really lively and all of that sort of stuff really helps make our gardens healthier and thrive better when we're really just cueing into that specific part of our garden, because we put so much attention into the growing of the plants,
Yeah.
but the plants need that soil. That's the, again, unless you're doing some hydroponics or these sort of other things as well too. But for most of us gardeners, the real important part of the garden is the soil. It's where it all starts, where it all begins. And again, it's going to be really awesome to just dig into this book and then talk with Diane too a lot about soil and how that really affects our garden spaces.
Yeah, you got to feed the soil feeds the plants, right? That's the way to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So again, everybody, and I'm sure Jay's probably popping in a link for us there for how to get a copy of your own copy of Grow Your Soil by Diane Meisler. This is Harness the Power of the Soil Food Web to Create Your Best Garden Ever. Yes. And so again, too, this is going to be a fun conversation. I'm really looking forward to talking to Diane this next month. And let me double check here too as well. Make sure I double check my calendar. Yeah, that'll be the 15th.
Yeah, December 15th.
December 15th, the third Sunday of this next month. And yeah, again, too, just going to be a really fun conversation. It'd be great to add this book to our book club collection and again, have another fun discussion for everybody out there to enjoy. And again, too, you don't necessarily have to get the book. If you didn't get the book and you don't have the book, definitely come along with us and enjoy the conversation. You're still going to learn a lot. You're still going to, and I'm sure, as with most of these shows and conversations we've had, I'm sure you'll come away, if you didn't get the book to begin with, you'll come away wanting to have the book in your collection afterwards. So definitely join with us for these really great, fun gardening book club selections.
Yeah, and send us your books for 2025 because I'm looking at a stack of 10 here that I'd like to do, and Enid's probably got another stack of 20 at his house that he'd like.
Yeah, and I've seen that everybody's already kind of made some great suggestions already too. You can keep those coming as well too, even after our live stream is over and you're joining with us on the replay. Definitely get down into the comment section below too and leave me some ideas for some different books that you think might be great for our book club here.
The learning journey is never over, is it, Enid?
It's never over. Yeah, again, too, it's one of the things I love to mention to people too. My journey's only been so far. I've only been doing it, just maybe 12, 13 years I've been food gardening. I know you've been doing it for many more years. We've had gardeners on the show who've been doing it 40, 50 years. And everybody across the spectrum, whether you're a brand new gardener or you've been doing it for 50 years, we all say the same thing. It's just a fun learning journey. And we're always learning new things about our gardening and growing spaces.
Yeah, really. It's because we're stepping into a big complex web of life and a big a flowing stream of agricultural tradition. So we're just playing our role right now in that web, trying to do as best we can for the earth, for the other creatures, and enjoying, trying to improve our techniques, of course, as we go, but also just kind of that sense of idleness, stepping back and just wondering at it all, just like, wow, this is pretty awesome. It's been going, it's going to keep going, and we're going to just try to play our little part here and understand it as best we can. Yeah, excellent. And again, man, it's been such an awesome year. Like I said, we got one more month to go in 2024. We'll have some fun next year, but so far, 7 great books, 7 awesome authors. It's been really amazing to have you join with us as well too, to be here live and have a part in these conversations. This has just been such a wonderful time for our book club. So I look forward to many, many more. Oh, I'm hungry for more. It's been my pleasure, Enoch. My pleasure to work with you and with our really amazing author guests. They've just been amazing. Excellent. All right, Mark, we'll let you go here real quick and get catching up with you here real soon. And again, thank you so much for being here. Thank you, everybody, for participating with our monthly gardening book club. Yeah, see you next month, everybody. Thank you. Bye. Right on.
Let's Get Growing is sponsored by IV Organic.
Hi, my name is Charles Malky, biologist and plant expert with Ivory Organics, where we grow cool plants and author Saving the World with the Home Garden. Ivory Organic 3-in-1 Plant Guard has 7 natural oils that protect your plants, not just from the summer heat as well as winter cold, but also protects your plants from damaging insects and rodents. The oils in the product include castor, cinnamon, clove, garlic, peppermint, rosemary, and spearmint. These oils are natural insect and rodent repellent oils, which are encapsulated by the base powder, offering your plants months of protection at a time. 1 application per year will suffice for protection against damaging summer sunburn and winter sun scald, but if the target is pests, application as much as 2 to 3 times a year may be necessary.
All right, all right. How amazing, how awesome. Such a great show today. So fun to get together and talk with our good friend Mark in the garden and for our monthly gardening book club right here on the Sunday edition of the Let's Get Growing show. So great to have all of you here joining with us here. And remember, we're here every Saturday and Sunday, 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 2 p.m. Eastern. And again, too, if you're joining with us here, be sure to click that like button, hit the like button, hit the thumbs up, subscribe as well. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit the bell notification to be notified of all of our upcoming shows, and be sure to share with all of your friends out there. And also, too, again, if you haven't had a chance to check out our shows from last week or yesterday, in fact, yesterday we had on the show Ryan Schumacher from Baker Creek Heirloom Seed Company joining with us to talk all about all of the different fun things that they're up to there at Baker Creek, and all of those fun reels and everything that they put together there at the Baker Creek Heirloom Seed Company, social media and everything. So a great, fun conversation with him. We also got to meet Brooke Morgan from At What Brook Grows. She was just such a fun conversation. I was like I was saying, we got to have her back on the show for maybe one of our Sunday gardening roundtables real soon. And again, too, just a great conversation. Go back and check last week's show with Marcus Bridgewater from the Garden Marcus as well. And also on our Sunday edition last week, we had a great roundtable with the plant techie, Josh and Desiree from Gardening with Des. Just a really great, fun gardening roundtable conversation there. And the week before that, too, I'll mention one more time, we had Mark Valencia from Self-Sufficient Me joining us with Nate Meary from Garden Like a Viking. We also had a really amazing, awesome gardening roundtable conversation. So you'll want to go back and check those out as well. So working on still what we're going to be doing for next week. I've already kind of set up and decided that for our Saturday Let's Get Growing show, we'll just kind of do a fun little get-together with all of us here, no guest, just me and you joining for a gardening conversation here on the Let's Get Growing show. It's kind of give us a good chance too. We have all the guests and all that sort of stuff, but it'll give us a good chance with all of you viewers to join with us in the conversation and be able to chat with you guys. So we got to do that every now and then on the show, just kind of a fun conversation with all of you out there who watch and view the show each and every week. What I will also do too, though, is I will give out for all of you who might be brave enough out there too. I know we got Bowtie out there. We got Big Will Dogs in the Soil. Maybe Jay, maybe someone will just give everybody the link for our show. So we'll give the show link so you can join us right here live on the show. And we'll kind of have a conversation with all of you and some of you who might join with us and jump in. So again, I'll just give you guys all a good fair warning for next Saturday, so you can come and join with us and be brave enough and join with us live here on the show. It'd be really great. And again, too, as I mentioned, too, for this next month, we're talking about our gardening book club today. Again, we're going to have Diane Meisler's Grow Your Soil featured for our next month's gardening book club. That'll be December 15th. and we'll have Diane on with us to talk all about this really great book. I'm already starting to dig into it, really enjoying it so far. So again, too, you don't have to have the book or get the book, but if you want, you get a copy of that book, read it before we get together this next December 15th, and join in on the conversation with Diane and Mark and I, and we'll have a really great time talking about that. And again, to next Sunday also, I've already got one person already signed up and ready to go for our garden roundtable. I'm working on one more. And when I get that together, I will put out and get those links and everything set up through our YouTube live page. So check in there, or I'll also announce it on our community page as well, too. So keep an eye out on that. We'll be announcing that probably in the next day or so here. And then again, too, a good idea is to click that notify button as well, too, so you can be notified of those as they're coming up as well, too. So my, oh my, we really having a great day today. We're running a little bit later than we usually do. We had a lot to cover with all of those really great books, but again, too, really great to have all of you here. One more time, though, remind you all to click the like button, hit the subscribe button, share with all your friends. Check out the links that we have down below in the description for you all there. And I'll mention too, come and join with us too and continue the conversation on our Facebook group for the Urban Gardener community, the Let's Get Growing group, appropriately named, right? The Let's Get Growing group. Come and join with us there. And again, you can share pictures, video, ask questions, answer questions, just participate with our Urban Gardener community here, and come join with us there. Again, there's a link right down below in the description. And also mention one more time, our sponsor is Ivy Organics. Go check out their 3-in-1 plant guard at ivyorganics.com. Use our promo code GROW10, GROW10, in order to save 10% off there in their shop. So again, go support Ivy Organics as and it's a good way to support our show through supporting our sponsor there. And again, too, thank you all so much for being here with us today. It's so great to see all of you here. I see we had let's see. Oh, I see Christopher joined with us as well, too. Great to see you, Chris. Thanks for jumping in. And again, to thank you all for joining us. Adam, Jay, for moderating and facilitating the conversation today. Bowtie, great to see you today. Bettina, thanks for jumping in with some of those great book selections and ideas and all of that. Thank you all to Rob from UK, Rick from Australia. You guys are just so wonderful, so awesome that you all show up here and join with us each and every weekend. I really appreciate you taking all of your time to be with us here on our show. It's really great, again, to be able to do this, to be able to have all these great fun conversations with all of you. And I'm looking forward to so many more. And I'll see all of you again this next Saturday.